TV producer. Welcome to my interview series, Diversity and Inclusion in TV, Radio and Film, in which professionals, industry professionals from a whole host of different backgrounds share their experiences, their opinions and ideas on how decision makers in this business can make a positive and lasting difference to create workplaces free of prejudice. Now, let me introduce you to my guest this week. She's had over 20 years experience in the broadcast industry. She's worked across a variety of projects, great British classics, including EastEnders and Blue Peter. Welcome, TV and film editor Zeb Achonu. Hi, Zeb.
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you. It's good to have you here. So share with us, what's your experience been working in the world of editing?
Well, obviously, you can see I am not a white male, which straight away puts me in a different category.
I think that's very clear.
Yeah, so I am a mixed race woman. I am half English, half Nigerian. And it's definitely, despite years of not wanting to believe it, it's definitely made things different. It's made things trickier. I have seen people leapfrog me in their career, whether they're better than me or not. And yeah, I've noticed changes, but I do think things have changed. They've got worse, and I hope they're getting better at the moment. I think when I start.
Sorry, so did you say they've got worse?
They've got worse, definitely.
In what respect?
So when I started in the industry, I was working at the BBC as a staff member. So I guess that probably puts into place certain measures, that there's certain, quotas they have to fill, or, certain criteria they need to fill. I left to go freelance around 2009 when the BBC started losing all of its craft stuff, and nobody was monitoring. I mean, they say they were, but that sort of thing doesn't get monitored. There's no HR department if you're freelance, so nobody's watching what happens. So when I was there, there were Black people, there were Asian people, there were disability, women, parents, and now nobody knows. So the amount of times I walk into an edit and people say, wow, I've never worked with a woman before, and I think, and you want to say, and I've never worked with a Black woman before, but they don't. They stop themselves, And I think I know what you mean. Occasionally now, after all the Black Lives Matter protests, I am having people very publicly say to me that they've never met a Black editor before, especially not a Black female editor. And for me, I'm like, why? Where have you been? I don't know plenty. I know some. Yeah. It prompted me to put a Twitter call out for other Black editors to name themselves, and there's quite a list on there. Still not loads, but yeah. So that's the way I feel. I realise that there is an awful lot of call for Black filmmakers, particularly at the moment, and Black film-made films are being commissioned. And I watch the credits of all of these things, and I know the editors and the sound editors who are making them, and they're white men, basically. They're white men. The directors and the writers might all be Black now, and some of the talent on the on-screen talent, but post-production is very, very lacking in its diversity.
And how do you think things can be improved so we get to a day where somebody doesn't say to you, oh, tentatively, oh, I've never worked with a woman before?
I think it's a really tough one. It's something that I speak to quite a lot of people about, and especially lately, because it's once I realised that that films are being commissioned, I started to get really angry about it. So I spoke to commissioners and said, what are you going to do? And most people sort of have scratched their head and said, oh, we'll talk to the diversity lead about it or something, which isn't enough. It's not enough. And it's also not enough to say, well, we're commissioning a whole load more, what I like to call race trauma films. So more films about, how I discovered people were racist. I cut EastEnders. That's not about race. I've cut Blue Peter. That's not about race.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, does it really require somebody of colour to work on a project that's about somebody about colour?
It doesn't, but I think at the moment it does. It shouldn't. But I do think that if you are trying to get the perspective of someone who has lived that, why not? Why not ask someone in the room? It's like a woman cutting a film about women's sexuality is going to see that differently to a man cutting a film about women's sexuality, for example. So a white man cutting a film about how Black people or Asian people have experienced racism is going to be, they're going to have a different viewpoint to a black person or an Asian person cutting that.
The insight of what it means to grow up in an environment or community like that.
Exactly. You know, and you can try and understand as much as you like. It's the same way as I can't pretend to understand a lot about the disabled community. I would like to cut, you know, if I cut a film, I'd like to do the best I can to represent. But surely you can get that information from the people who are living that experience. So that's how I feel that we need to go an awful long way for diversity and inclusion in this industry, but specifically in post-production, which is where it is massively lacking. And there have been many reports about this recently, very recently.
I'd like to just, go back to a point you made earlier. You made a reference to diversity managers. Now, do you think diversity managers come from enough diverse communities themselves to be informed enough to know the experience of people of color and therefore contribute positively to creating a more equal or level playing field for everyone? Or do you think those diversity managers are still coming from they're not coming from diverse enough backgrounds?
Well, when I'm thinking of people, I'm thinking about people who definitely are coming from the backgrounds like June Sarpong or Addie Rawcliffe, but equally you can't expect the few, Babita Bahal, you can't expect these people to know everyone's experience and to know every role. So you can't be one person focused on every department and making sure that that is inclusive. As I say, when I've spoken to commissioners about the post-production problem and they've said, I'll talk to June about that. Well, June doesn't know what happens in the edit suite. When somebody's commissioning something and they've got their, the right names and faces on their list, once you hit post-production, everybody stops thinking about it, partly because it then goes out to a post-production facility or another company. And they're not necessarily, it doesn't get monitored within them. Different channels or different groups will make promises about 20% diversity or inclusion, or we won't make a film unless we've got the crew are, and even then you're talking about they'll go, okay, we'll get some entry level, our runners are in, or we'll get people in, but where are they moving up the ladder? Are they back on the next project? Are they, do they have role models? Do they have people in mid and senior positions on those productions for people to follow that route and it's really important to see and be seen. So if you can't see someone doing it, you don't expect you can do it. It's so obvious. So that's it really. I think people go for safety. And at the moment in post-production, safety is a white man who's been doing that job very successfully. But nobody will get that experience or reputation if you don't let them. And people are, I'm not saying it's not happening, it is happening. It's just very, very slow and feels very, very late.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from what you've just said is that, those who are decision makers, those who are in a position to make a difference, need to put in place infrastructures which facilitate more people from diverse communities coming in, not just at entry level, but then having other people from diverse communities to support them to grow their careers.
Absolutely. And we're here. We just need to, need to be linked up, or there just needs to be more of us. And we are here, or we drop out of the industry because, you get tired of the same conversations, preaching to the choir again.
So look, there's a huge responsibility on the industry itself and the various broadcasters, production companies, and so on. There's a huge responsibility on them to, to remove any constraints for people of color and those from, other diverse backgrounds. Now, that's one side of the story. Do you think that people of color, or those with disability or from diverse or underrepresented groups, need to take more initiative themselves and start creating groups? And I know there are some, and networks and databases to kind of start presenting the evidence themselves so that people actually are more proactive in their approach.
I think there are pros and cons in that, because I think it's really, really important to have these networks and these places to go, to have a supportive community around you. It's really important to feel supported in this industry. And if you are different to, what is the norm in this industry, you need to find your people who can raise you and boost you. And that's, I think, is really important. But it's also important not to completely separate, because then you kind of give it to them. If, I don't want to do an us and them, but you kind of give it to them. I do think it's really important to as I said, about being to be seen and be seen, and to actually be there to offer help and support to people coming up in the industry. Again, that's, you know, by being part of these networks and making sure that senior and mid-level people don't go, well, that's not for me because I'm not entry level. You need to be there for people to talk to. And so we do all need to be there. It's a real tough one, I think, but I think it's really important to be networking within those communities, but then to also infiltrate, is that the right phrase, into, you know, the wider TV. But yeah, I sat in on a Zoom chat with American post-production editors and assistants, and what I found there, it was very much a Black group, and it was huge, and they were so supportive, and a really valuable bit of information that came out that I hope to be able to carry on with as we go back into the real world is networking. The whole industry is about who you know, as we know, and so networking is really, really, really important. So if you, like, you know, I'm already in a network, making a point of bringing someone who isn't in that network to those events, someone from those backgrounds, those diverse backgrounds, to those events, and introducing them to the people you know, you've brought someone in, and they, you know, then it's up to people to be personable enough to make friends, but you know, you've brought them there as a support, you've introduced them, that network has grown. Then as they go on, they can bring someone else, and you can keep bringing, every time you go, bring someone else who isn't used to being in those places.
Zeb, forgive my interruption. I hear what you're saying, and I think it's great, and I think a lot of people do that. But to have everybody, you know, who's from an underrepresented community, who's doing well, to do that, I mean, I just don't think that's realistic, because there are people. Let's face it. You know, it's about personality as well. It's not just what heritage you are, or you know, gender and so on. So there may be some people within that who just think, well, you know, I just don't want that hassle. I don't want to do that.
Then they don't have to, just the ones who want to.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you can only do what you can do, because some people don't see it as a problem or don't have a problem, and that's their experience, and that's fine. But someone like me who does see that there's an issue, and I do want to see change, so it's something that I would do. So I think, you know, it's baby steps, but it's just doing whatever you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the more people who contribute to this, the quicker, you know, and active this whole process can become. I'd just like to now talk about, you know, women who choose to have children, you know, maybe at the start of their career or midway or whenever it is. I know you have children. Tell us, how is the industry in post-production set up to accommodate, you know, women who do have children but choose to go away and then come back, or whatever the scenario might be?
It doesn't really. It doesn't accommodate. It's I've got 3, and and I've carried on because I'm very stubborn, and I mean, that's not true. I've had some great support. I've had some really great support, but it's not easy. Nothing about this industry is easy. You know, long hours, personalities, opportunities being few and far between. But having children with the long hours and those few and far between opportunities, it makes it really, really difficult. And it's just about knowing, for me, it's about finding my supportive network, and it's about understanding that it's not forever. They're not tiny and needy forever. So whatever point you do it in your career, things are going to take a hit, but it's my life, and so I've chosen to do this. I found that, again, it comes down to making connections and keeping in contact with people. When I took maternity leave, there's obviously the fear that everyone's going to forget me and the technology is going to move on and I won't be able to do it anymore. It doesn't go that fast. You can read stuff, you can keep up. People forget you if you let yourself be forgotten. So keeping in touch, we're all online, just keeping in touch, making sure people know, and then being ready to say, you know, I'm back, I want to come back. It isn't easy. Yeah, it isn't easy, but I also learned it's really important, like even on maternity leave, there are, particularly for editing and post-production, there are a lot of online groups like Edit Girls Insta and the Edit Collective, and Raising Films and Cinemamas and Women in Film and TV. There are a lot of groups that you can keep in touch with, find out what networking sessions are going on, or what, you know, session
loop, and to maintain.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly, and to get advice about returning to work. And so there's all that stuff out there, and they're really I spent a lot of time on my third maternity leave in contact with people that I met through Edit Girls Insta, you know, that I did an interview on Instagram. I made great connections who, just out of coincidence, because well, not coincidence, through we kept in touch. These are other women, sometimes with children, sometimes without. I've managed to get work through them or get them work afterwards, and it's those connections.
It's like a support group almost.
Absolutely,
Of people
absolutely.
with, you know, like-minded and helping each other out. It
Yeah.
sounds really great. And I know there's a lot of groups out there, you know, whether you work in cameras or post-production or production, you just got to go find them. There's tons online.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'd like to talk about the various workplaces. As you know, as a freelancer, you will go from job to job, different locations, different production companies, and so on. And so you're constantly meeting with new people and having to engage and immediately get on with new people. You know, there can be scenarios where you find yourself in a challenging position, being somebody of color or from an underrepresented group. And there seems to be this fear factor involved in being able, not speaking up, like if something happens. There seems to be this fear factor of, oh, you know, I may lose my job, but this could be detrimental to my career and so on. I see that you're very passionate and, you know, you are vocal. And so what do you think the way forward is on that? Not only from the side of the responsibility of the person who might be on the receiving end of something like that or feels uncomfortable, but also for those who are responsible for taking care of the well-being of people on set or in a production.
I think it can be really difficult because obviously earlier on in my career, I certainly experienced that. I think now I probably, you know, I handle it differently.
Share with me, how do you handle it differently?
Well, I think in the beginning, I probably wouldn't have known where to go, where now I'm able to understand, I recognize when something's inappropriate, and I've usually already, you know, I know who I'm to go to if I can't confront them myself. I'm not particularly quiet about things that I don't like. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just mean, I don't think I have things happen directly to me. And if they do, I usually would say to maybe the person who booked me, I'm not very comfortable around such and such because this is what happened, in confidence. And they might say to me, this is a known thing, we'll take it further, or okay, we'll try and, you know, work out a solution that eases that, which might be them saying, you know, if it's about someone making a comment because I've had to leave, you know, on time, you know, and I'll say, listen, I've got to go. And then so I might have a supervisor say to someone, again, in confidence, we need to remind you that these are the hours we work. Everybody has a life, you know, so it doesn't become about, oh, you're a mum and you have to leave early. It becomes like, no, she's worked until 7.
But do you know what, Zeb? That's a whole different story in itself, isn't it? The hours element. And we could be here like till.
Yeah, but I've had people assume that I can't do certain hours because I'm a mum.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or people have been like assuming that I don't understand a certain subject because I didn't grow up, or, you know, because I didn't grow up in, I don't know, 1940s Britain or something. And it's this kind of madness of like, what so the white guy who's younger than me does? Or, you know, it's really, really, really rare. Whereas I know in the beginning, I certainly had people who I did feel very uncomfortable, or I did have those experiences when I'd walk into an edit to take over from a night editor and be handed the cups as if I'm the cleaner. And that assumption that, you know, you're not white, you must be the cleaner. And I would, you know, then just be so shocked and be like, no, I'm here to take over, and kind of keep it to myself and feel really uncomfortable until I discovered so many people had the same experience. And now I'd be like, okay, you got that wrong, and let them realize what a mistake that they've made. But, you know, I've picked up the phone in Edit Suites to ask someone to connect my drives, and they've gone, okay, can we speak to the editor? And I'm like, you are.
That'll be me.
But it's that to now do it, whereas in the past I probably would have kept quiet, but now I would be, you know, I'm polite about it, but you're speaking to her, you know.
But do you know what it is there? But what I'm getting is that, you know, as we get older, we gain confidence because you've got that life experience and you know how to handle people better. You know, at entry level, I think it's a lot trickier.
Very, very.
I think you still should speak up, but go to the people who you can speak and request that it's in confidence, you know.
But that's when I think it goes back to the person who booked you, your supervisor, and to not go back, you know, ranting and or, you
Yeah,
know,
I think that's
whining.
detrimental to rant and rave. I think there's a way to convey a message
It
always.
might even be an email. It might just be a look, or even an email saying, would you have 15 minutes for a quiet chat? Is there somewhere we can go?
Yeah.
And the people who've booked you in are aware of that. And if they can't support you, there must be someone else you can go to. And if not, maybe it's just not, you know, a toxic place to
Yeah.
work. It's a toxic workplace you need to escape. But
Um,
you know.
to finish with, I'd like to talk about, you know, your involvement. You're on the board of directors for women and film and in TV, and an associate governor of the British Film Editors Guild, and a member of BAFTA. How are you personally making a difference being involved in all these organisations?
Well, I'm trying to, I hope I am, I'm trying to talk about diversity and inclusion where I can. Women in film and TV are doing really well with that, being that they are women who are quite a diverse mix on the board and the membership, and, you know, so that one's quite easy. The British Film Editors Guild is changing quite a lot, and the board has changed a lot since I joined. And I'm heavily involved in their diversity and inclusion side of things for that, which can be as simple as bringing my own interviews to the magazine, you know, getting people in print. Here's what people are doing. Here's, so that it's not a magazine where every page you turn is another white guy, who I'm not knocking any of them, they're great. But it was great to have a feature in the last episode. I had a feature about women in film and TV, and about the Black British Post-Production Collective, which was set up by two Black female edit assistants who have a story to tell. And so to put them in, shout about them as much as I can. So that's how I'm trying to raise profile, I think, of.
No, it sounds great. You're making more visible other people from diverse backgrounds, and people who've got other stories and different stories to share.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you're doing a wonderful job, and
Thank you.
you know, I love your passion about this, and you know, you're trying to make a difference. Thank you for that, and also thank you so much for sharing your story with me today and what your ideas are on this.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm really, really interested to hear what your thoughts are on the lack of diversity in TV, radio, and film. Whether you're, you know, at entry level, or whether you've been working in the industry for a long, long time, I'd really be interested to hear your stories. You know, what impact has it had on you, or what is your story positive? Whatever that might be, do get in touch and you know, leave me a message, because I'll be really interested to hear how you're getting on. Also, please feel free to continue this conversation, this discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on anything that I've discussed with Zeb today, or indeed what your ideas might be on how to improve matters in this business. And also, in order to keep up to date with all the interviews I've done with all my fantastic industry professionals, do subscribe to my YouTube channel.